going to conquer and we're going to take some. Is that understood? Yes, sir. That's what we're going to do, sweetheart. We are going to go and get some. All right, people, on the ready line. Are you me? Yeah! Are you me? Yeah! What are you?
Summer presents unique opportunities and challenges for families raising children with disabilities. In EP Magazine's annual Summer Fun and Travel issue, we revisit some articles from recent years that address a variety of situations that parents might face during the summer. Sign up and read informative articles for free about autism and other disabilities at www.epmagazine.com.
Monotony. It comes in all shapes and sizes. Dull, tedious, just plain boring. But what is this? A contender, perhaps? Something unboring by the looks of it. Jabs right at dull, an uppercut to tedium, something that keeps you on your toes, keeps your head on a swivel, a knockout punch to your old, boring workouts. Welcome to Fight Camp.
Oscar Mike Radio is a proud podcast partner of REITs Across America Radio, heard every Thursday at 11 a.m. and Sunday at 8 a.m. Eastern. They're also big supporters of the nonprofit I Got Your Six, 2 Lives at Once. And with every wreath you sponsor through Oscar Mike Radio, $5 goes back to this great organization dedicated to making a difference in the lives of veterans, law enforcement, firefighters, and first responders battling PTSD. 2 Lives at Once pairs these brave men and women together with dogs rescued from kill shelters. In this way, 2 lives are saved at the same time by saving each other. Donate now. Go to REITsAcrossAmerica.org/Oscar Mike Radio to help. That's REITsAcrossAmerica.org/Oscar Mike Radio.
Look at what we just did! It took every single one of us here! And look what we just did!
Welcome home. I want to welcome you all home. Thank you. You guys, remarkable. I mean, inspired an entire nation. Look at all these amazing people here. I know all of us have a tremendous amount of love for you. I want to thank each and every one of you for the continued leadership you provide to our veteran community, our familias, our families, our veteran families, but the entire nation. So we love you all. Thank you. Thank you.
Hello and welcome again to Oscar Mike Radio. My name is Travis, Marine Corps veteran and your host. Oscar Mike Radio is co-produced with Since One Productions. What's your podcast doing? I want to thank my sponsor, Joyce Asek of Asek Real Estate, and my supporters, Case on Shaving Company, Exceptional Parent Magazine, and Fight Camp. Be your strongest combination. I've got a special one for you all today, folks. Counting down to number 500. We're on the downward slope of that. And I got an email saying, hey, do you want to talk to somebody special? I said, well, yeah, absolutely. And they're like, we've got, Michael, a.k.a. Sully from Team Red, White, and Blue. I'm like, I'm there. And Team Red, White, and Blue has been around for a while, but a lot of people still don't know what they all do. So I've got the man, the legend, not a myth. Sully, welcome to Oscar Mike Radio.
Thank you very much, especially for that intro. It's
Well,
it's always nice to be called a legend. I don't know if that's true, but I appreciate it.
Green Beret, Colonel, leader of special operations. I mean, it's just like check to awesomeness. So I like to do it up. Sorry, sir. Just the way how we do it.
No, I appreciate it. I've been blessed. I've had a Herculean team of people that have carried me along the way, so it made it easy.
We'll talk about that because a lot of people sometimes think that it happens in a vacuum and they don't realize that it does take a team.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I've always believed my entire career, but like my entire life, I'm like a big believer in like the idea that it's a team, Some people say it takes a village. I would say it takes a team. You're born into your first one, and so that may be not the team that you choose. If you're lucky, like I was, upper middle class family, very strong Christian values, sense of service from the very start. My dad was like a county prosecuting, where he was a county prosecuting attorney. My mom, worked in child services. He had served in the military. Both their fathers had served in World War II. My great grandfather had served in World War I. So I was surrounded by this group of people. I had two older sisters and an older brother that were always looking out for me. So, from the start, it was, I was in a team environment. And then throughout my life, I was very much a person that was into sports, into club activities. And, I just found that, your strengths are brought out by those around you. And a lot of it's tied to like you're accountable to others besides yourself. And usually that creates a great environment for success. And that just carried on through college and then my 30-year military career.
So how do you have a family, you have this spectrum of service. What was the deciding factor to join the military?
I was always interested in it. There was a little bit of memorabilia in the house growing up. Like my dad's old uniform and my grandfather's uniform was like in a closet somewhere. I think at one point we had like his promotion certificates when he was promoted to, I guess commissioned as a second lieutenant and then first lieutenant. He got out after his time, was a Vietnam veteran, and then went on to law school. But so I was kind of surrounded with that. His biological father died in World War II as a B-24 pilot.
Oh, wow.
When his adopted father had served in World War II, my mom's dad served in the Navy in World War II. So we had two like Army guys and Navy guy. And then there were stories of my great grandfather, who was a World War I veteran, who just has this unique story, like turn of the century guy, you didn't have to go to college to go to medical school, surprisingly. So he tested into medical school because he was like, I guess that smart. Graduates and decides, hey, World War I's going on. I want to go be a combat surgeon. The Army doesn't take him because he had lost a tip of his finger to like a childhood accident and said that there's no way he could be a surgeon because of it. So he enlists as a medic. He's on the front lines in Europe, runs into a college professor, a medical school professor who is a combat surgeon. And he's like, what are you doing here as a medic? He explains the whole story. gives him a battlefield commission. He becomes a captain in the U.S. Army as a surgeon, and served the rest of World War I, and then he even served some time after, before he got out.
I
So
gotta tell you,
I had all these stories growing up around me, but really kind of intrigued me when it came to like maybe the services for me. But
I
go
read the
ahead.
book Eye Deep in Hell about World War One, and I
Oh,
really wish we had gotten more World War One stories, Michael. It's just what they all went through was something that we can't even conceive now about how to fight a battle. It just defies explanation of what they all went through.
yeah, it's unimaginable, right? I've done a lot of history. I was a government history major in college, so I really gravitate toward military history. And yeah, World War One is it, at a level that's kind of inconceivable, even for someone that like saw combat myself. I mean, even talking to my dad as a Vietnam vet, like we couldn't share the same perspective in terms of like the types of enemy we were facing and the kind of things we both went through. It was so different.
Right.
But again, yeah, I went to college. Actually, didn't join ROTC until my end of my sophomore year. Got a letter saying they had a 2-year scholarship. I was like, well, that'll pay for my last 2 years of school. I'll hold 4 years. I had kind of looked at the academies before I went to school, but decided I wanted a regular college experience. But figured, hey, I'll do that for 4 years and then I'll figure out the rest of my life. Maybe I'll go to law school like my dad. Well,
No,
30
that's
years later, I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. But the it worked out. It was an incredible career.
when you figure out how all that, figuring out how it all works, please let me know because I'm still kind of, I should have it figured out, but I don't. So I'm glad I'm not the
Yeah.
only one.
Yeah.
Right up front, I find that a lot of people get confused with, the difference between a Green Beret, an Army Ranger, and Delta
Yep.
Force, and SEAL, MARSOC. But for the Army has three distinct like special forces, tracks, if you will. What's the difference between a Green Beret, a Ranger, and someone in Delta? Or I'm not sure Delta's actually Army, but
Yeah, I
there's
can't I
different.
can't confirm or deny that.
Okay, okay. Well,
No, just yeah, no, there is a unit that that you may or may not have just named that does exist in the United States Army, right? So there's a tier one, top of the level unit that was commonly referred to as Delta. Then you have the Ranger Regiment and then Special Forces or Green Berets. We go by both terms, which confuses people even more. They're like, wait, are you Special Forces or Green Berets? And you're like, yes, same thing. Um, so distinct kind of mission set for each one. For the Ranger Regiment, they are our premier infantry fighting force, and for the Army, their primary purpose is essentially to infiltrate, create a foothold, and then bring in follow-on forces, right? So airfield seizures, setting up LZs for like to bring in the 82nd Airborne Division, and then they have throughout like the War on Terror provided um, support to other special operations entities to kind of build out that force. So they were doing stuff with both, whether it was Delta or like the SEALs elite team, which some people say SEAL Team 6. The You would often see a Ranger company attached to those guys to give them some additional firepower, like when they were doing things on objective in Iraq and Afghanistan. Um, so like the best of the best infantry soldiers in the United States Army are Ranger Regiment guys, right? Um, you also have Ranger School, which you have to be qualified in Ranger School to be a Ranger Regiment guy, but you can be Ranger qualified and serve in any part of the Army. It's a school that anybody can attend if they put themselves to that task. My son's an infantry officer, doesn't serve in the Ranger Regiment, but he went to Ranger School. Um, Special Forces or Green Berets, essentially our mission is a combat multiplier that works through indigenous or foreign forces, to do one of two things primarily. It's our primary mission set is what they'll call foreign internal defense, so we'll link up with a foreign entity, ideally a high-end infantry unit or another special operations unit in a foreign country, train them and prepare them to do the kind of things that we do, and either enable them to do it on their own or maybe go with them, right? The other side of that um, coin is what we call unconventional warfare, where we would go into an unfriendly nation or maybe the periphery, work with an insurgency force, a guerrilla force, whatever you want to call them, patriots, freedom fighters, train them in different types of combat and either support them cross border or go with them to essentially overthrow an enemy government or cause problems for an enemy government, right? So it's teams of 12. You have a captain that's in charge of that team with an E8, a master sergeant as the team sergeant. The deputy commander is a warrant officer, and then you have senior E7 who's like your intel second kind of NCO in charge. And then you have one each of a different military occupation skill. You have a weapons sergeant that knows all the weapons in the world to include, all the U.S. weapons, as he's your kind of tactician, and it's a senior and junior. Then you have a communications sergeant that knows all the radios, computers, and how to keep yourself in touch because you don't want to be out there alone and unafraid without a way to call from home. Nope. You have a medical sergeant who's like a combat surgeon. They go through over a year, 18 months of training, almost like medical school to like actually do things. It's not like a regular medic. They'll do everything from dentistry work to like pull bullets out of you, and stitch you up and get you so you can get back to like a hospital. And then you have your engineers who are there to help the team build things if they're like in an environment where they're having to build their own little base or things like that. But their specialty is explosives. So they're the guys that are going to help you blow things up, take down bridges, make doors and where doors don't exist on a wall or something like that. Get rid of a door for you. So those are the four specialties that there's two each. So it makes up that 12-person team. And again, they're trained in a foreign language. There's 5 active duty groups. So they align to different parts of the world. I was a 3rd Special Forces group guy my entire career. Originally aligned to AFRICOM and Africa, which meant I learned French because that's the second language most people on the continent speak if they don't speak English. And then for me, I never deployed as a captain to Africa. I did 6 deployments to Afghanistan from the ranks of captain to lieutenant colonel. Never used my French, I think, once, but you learn a different language so you can interact with those indigenous forces and kind of build that capacity. And then the last force you talked about was Delta, right? So they're the high end tier 1. They do everything from picking out high value targets. So they're the type of guys that like the president would call if he needs to go take down a terrorist leader or the like. They're the ones that would do any sort of those high end kind of what we call direct action missions, like strike missions. The most elite kind of like gunfighters that we have, and super intelligent. Work alone and unafraid. They're our premier kind of 911 force. When you need something done very specific in a very short amount of time, you're going to call those folks. So.
Well, we can't take 30 years of Army service and compact it into less than an hour for OMR. But, reading about your bio, reading about who you are and studying up, it's like you have led at, some really high speed missions for a very long time and been very proficient at it. But all service comes to an end, right? And you have to get out. Was there any... How has it changed for you when you go from this high speed tempo as a colonel to being a civilian?
Yeah. Well, I think who you are and what you've done doesn't necessarily change, right? You just want to find a way to focus that into something new. I tell people this all the time. I kind of hit an easy button based on the work that I do now. So I work for a veteran nonprofit called Team Red, White, and Blue, or often referred to as Team RWB. Typically, you would see a red shirt with the eagle on. I'm wearing my black shirt today, but the
Black shirt's fire, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. It's a veteran support organization that was started by a friend of mine, a guy named Mike Irwin, 15 years ago. And it's open to everybody. So when he was first standing this thing up, he called me. We had both served together in 3rd Special Forces Group. He was an intel officer. I was a major. And he's like, "Hey, Sully, I need you to stand up a group of these people. It's going to be an organization that every veteran needs to help transition them, out of the service." Initially, it was a designed to help wounded veterans to transition out of the service, but multiple of those other organizations started to pop up. And what we found early on was the people that were kind of building the community around these folks that they were trying to help were getting more out of the mission than maybe even the wounded veteran themselves. So Mike opened up the scope of this thing, that it was going to help all veterans to kind of enrich their lives through focusing on physical fitness post-service. And the way they did that is building social connections through community, build a local team, team red, white, and blue, get yourself back out there off the couch, doing the things you need to do to keep yourself accountable and moving forward. So I was an early volunteer. I've been around with the organization for 14 years while I was on active duty, or 13 years. And Mike reached out to me. He's like, "Hey, I think you're the perfect guy to come in and be one of the senior leaders in the organization, based on your experience, your work with people." So he's like, "What do you think?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think that would be amazing. Like, I get to continue to serve. I have a mission every day. It's kind of an evergreen mission in terms of like health and wellness doesn't stop. You got to work on it all the time. And, it's, I get to be around veterans. We have multiple members that are active duty, reserve, and guard. 20% of the members are civilians, mostly family members, but, local people that just want to hang out with veterans and go for a run or a workout, what have you. So, I can't say I have like the typical experience for most people when it comes to transition, because I'm like in this military adjacent environment where I get to talk the same. I'm, motivated to work out every morning the same way. People are holding me accountable, and it's mission kind of focused. So it's been relatively easy. I think if this got ripped out from under me, I may be having a different conversation with you. But I think ultimately I would apply the skills that I learned, this idea of finding a team, and I would find myself a team environment someplace else, because that's what I want to be a part of, a group of people that are all kind of moving in the right direction for something maybe more than themselves. So I think that's what would work, I think, for me, even if it wasn't Team Red, White, and Blue.
Well, it's really interesting you mentioned the teamwork aspect of this, and I want to dig into the civilian participation, because I'm reading more and more, sir, that isolation is a problem. It's not good. I mean, and I kind of like being alone, but I'm reading more and more that, whether I want to admit it or not, humans need interaction with other human beings to be optimal. And isolation is really one of the contributing factors, or a precursor to suicidal ideations or even follow through. So I found the whole thing with Team RWB really interesting. Now, when I first heard about it, I thought, well, these are just people running, and I don't run anymore, so there's no room for me. But I met some people who had participated in the organization, people who had served, and more importantly, people who hadn't served. And I kind of want to stay there for a minute. What was the decision, or how did that come about, to say, you know what, we want these civilians to be a part of Team RWB and be part of the veteran experience? Was that purposeful? And if so, how?
Yeah, absolutely, it was purposeful. I think, again, with the idea of the mission being to enrich a veteran's life, but early on through building community that's focused on like physical fitness. The idea is, most veterans aren't staying, well, maybe most are, but like there's a large portion of veterans that are moving away from military towns, military facilities, and that environment that kind of they surrounded themselves with while they were in the service. You pick the service. So early on, it was, well, we need to include anybody that wants to be part of this. Now, I think it naturally started to take place as well, because you're talking about this organization being stood up in 2010. It's the height of two separate wars that are going on. The nation was on fire for patriotism and, thanking every service member for their service, every opportunity they had, and people wanted to understand how could they participate. And Mike and the team, I think, realized early on, like, here's an opportunity to focus that energy in a positive way, like make them a part of the community. Like let a civilian, get past the thank you for your service and the thank you for your support, like thanks for the support conversation that happens. and get to the brass tacks of like, hey, get to know people and realize that a service member is no different than any other American that's out there. We have family problems, we have successes, we have failures, but um, there is an opportunity, I think, even for the community, the civilian community that hasn't been around the military, to see that, this is a really great group of folks. They're highly motivated, purpose driven, that are willing to share like accountability with those around them and to pull, their teammates along. And actually a really resilient bunch if you can keep them, focused in that way, right? I think really, it's one of those things with the service and the messaging these days that we're really kind of against is this idea that every veteran's broken, or every veteran, you serve for a day, you're probably, thank you for your service and I'm sorry you had to serve. Like I'm starting to hear that on the streets, which is like, wait a second, like the service was like an honor. Like it actually
Yeah.
like gave me so much opportunities to travel, to take care of my family. I have two children that now serve. Like I'm all about the service. So RWB is very positive in terms of looking at like, hey, thanks to your service, like you have better days ahead, but you need to continue to fight for them, right? Um, so I think it was purposeful in terms of bringing in that community of civilian supporters into the team, and it only makes it stronger. And the greatest thing about Team RWB is it's free for everybody. The only thing that's not free is you got to be a veteran to get the red T-shirt. If you want the other cool swag, you got to pay for it at the gear store. But again, everybody can participate for free. You can be a part of the team, both, what we call in our digital garrison in our app, that gives you kind of some virtual connections and some virtual community. But that in-person community is only stronger when you include those folks, that aren't military at all. I mean, we do a Tuesday, Thursday 5K every week here in Fayetteville, and the two ladies that run it and wear their RWB stuff, civilians. They don't
Oh,
have
really?
family members that are they're not married to, these are two civilians that were runners. We are guilty of being called the biggest run club in America, but it is they saw it as an opportunity to better get to know better the people that we're serving that they lived in town with, each and every day, um, through kind of sharing some sweat out there on the road together.
So this brings me to a topic or a couple of questions that I don't want to be controversial, but I do think need to be asked. You have this organization that started, over a decade ago and get thousands of members nationwide, and it's growing and it's thriving, and you have the civilian interaction. What is it about this organization that's so different that it seems to be so inviting and thriving? Whereas, I just talked to somebody about their, American Legion, that if they can't get the membership up to like 20 people coming in, they're going to have to shut the doors. There seems to be a real change in attitude with the kind of organization this generation wants to join and be a part of. Do you have any viewpoint on that, sir?
No, I think I do. I think it's critical for any community-based organization to remain kind of entrepreneurial in their approach and understand that like at any time, things can change, and I think for veterans organizations in general, with the end of both wars, and a focus back on rebuilding defense and focusing on other things, and then the nation itself focusing on other social issues and other problems that we face, that not that veterans are being ignored, but again, you're sharing the attention more with other issues. And that's fine. That's great. I mean, if anything, that's what we fought for, right? That you don't want it all to be 24/7 on the military and just us. So I think that's a great thing about the nation. The key, I think, is for us is we were focusing on being adaptable, meeting people where they're at, and providing them opportunities, to find what they want in our community. Communities in general are like, it's changing, right? Like I mentioned it, like we leaned into like this virtual aspect really early on. Like, well, not really, but like 2017,
Okay.
primarily as like a event-based app. Like, let's develop an app so there's all these other clunky things. People can find each other and get together in person. It's evolved to be something much more where it kind of has a little bit of a social media feel. You can check in, no algorithm, so it's not designed to keep you there all day long. But you can check on the people you follow. That's all you're going to see in your feed, and see what Sully's up to. Like, oh, he ran a 5K today, or he ran a Sully ran another 100 miler. What's he doing? That guy's nuts, or whatever it is. Or he's all now he's into CrossFit and he's talking about sleep, But you have these opportunities to kind of, in a very positive way, interact with each other. Um, we keep the other distractions that aren't health and wellness out of kind of we say, hey, that's not what we're about. We support the idea that there's more to life than just Team RWB, but focus on your health and wellness and the things that's going to make you, important when you're posting and talking about it. And through that, though, we were able to then build out things like virtual challenges and virtual holistic training and health kind of gamified, like 15-day hydration challenges or a sleeping challenge. We have a nutrition group, and we have activity groups for just about anything you'd want to do. Everything from, I think it's um, mind wellness was what we call yoga, but I mean, we got a name for everything, that's not proprietary. So it's like, functional fitness, vice like CrossFit. But if you're interested in something besides running, I guarantee you can find a group of Eagles in the app and figure out what they're doing. And it allows you to connect across space and time too, because unlike brick and mortar chapters that are having trouble these days to fill their ranks, we're able to reach that guy that's in Wyoming that may be 200 miles from another member in Team RWB, but he can connect over the app and they can talk about how their 5K run went that day. Right.
Nice.
So we're adapting in terms of how we see and define community. We're not afraid of this idea that people are using their phones and their computers and other ways to connect more. We still think the gold standard is getting people out in person and engaging one-on-one with other folks. So a lot of our stuff tries to drive people back to those in-person events. Um, but it's a challenge. It is definitely a challenge. I mean, I think, again, coming out of the wars, COVID really hurt any sort of like in-person community because we were told to isolate. People got used to it and started doing other things. But we do see like a return of folks getting back out. There's more people registering for Spartan races and doing these other types of events that seemed like they were going to die in 2021. They're starting to thrive again themselves. We get like in our app 25 to 30, sometimes if the VA puts us in their newsletter, like 75 new downloads a day. And it's we really see that as, hey, keep those folks moving forward, get them involved, find a team of their own, and keep it moving. But it does cause you to have to adapt. I mean, we're a chapter-based model, geographically focused, and this idea that you have to have, 5 of this, each person in a certain position, and you got to do these kinds of things in the rule book. We've looked at that and said, okay, we got to be a little bit less strict, more open to the idea that the 25-year-olds are going to want to wear their t-shirt and show up at the local run club event where there's 30 other single folks and do their fitness there, then hang out with the GWAT veterans that are doing a 5K walk. You know what I mean? So, but that's great, right? Just, continue to do it.
All right. Talk to me about health, nutrition, and wellness, because even when I was in and the men I knew that had served, they got out and that whole wellness nutrition thing was out the window. Even when I was in, I mean, I think about it. I had Marines I served with that could buy a 30-pack on a Friday night, do it again Saturday night, have a half a pack for Sunday and get up and run PT Monday morning. And that was considered a good Marine. That Marine has priorities in order. But we learned later how bad that was.
Probably not ideal.
Right. So what brought about this focus on the health and wellness part? Because, as I get older and start breaking down, I realize that, I do need to take care of myself.
Yeah, I think, well, I mean, for Team RWB, it's always been a part of the core mission, right?
Always part.
It's how we brought the community together was through physical fitness activities, primarily running, right? Well, we own the running club moniker. But in 2017-18, they actually evolved the mission and vision. It was still to enrich veterans' lives, but the new vision was to build the leading health and wellness community for veterans, which is a big vision. I've told people as I came on, to my position as the chief of staff, and now moving into, I'm replacing Mike as the executive director, the next executive director. I was like, this is we're swinging for the fences for a club that was seen as a bunch of guys that just go running, and gals that are going to do a marathon or something. It's like that we got to expand that, right? So for us, we leaned into this idea that, well, far left of when you need actually acute care and you're talking about health and wellness that requires people with PhDs and degrees, there is a place and a space for us to exist that provides, an understanding, education that, like, your mental health is definitely tied to your physical health, right? As well as your spiritual health, your financial health. But we can really focus on that one pillar of physical health and provide you kind of like input and training to the other. For some of us, I mean, I was fortunate, right? We mentioned that I was a special operator. I was in the Green Beret, and I think it was. Man, I'll get the date wrong, and my friends that do this for us will beat me up. But it was probably like in 2006, 7. SOCOM decided to invest in physical therapists, professional trained strength and conditioning coaches, and nutritionists, and started to fill out each special operations unit with this core of people in the Green Beret community. They called it Thor 3. I can't remember what the acronym stands for, but Thor's cool. It's like God of Thunder, like we're all about it. But it was designed to treat, you know, special operators as professional athletes because they had invested millions of dollars in training and the like to get us to where we were at. And if they could keep us healthier and fit, we could be better in our jobs, when we went downrange. That is now kind of permeated beyond special operations in the Army, and I think the Marine Corps. Everybody's leaned into it to, hey, how do we replicate this for the larger force? So you got guys like me that are now retiring, and we're like, wait a second, like this is absolutely needed in the veteran community as well. So how can we at Team RWB take holistic health and fitness, get people smart on their sleep? Like if you're sleeping, like that's the number one thing you got to fix is like your sleep. Like if you can get your sleep right, the other things will start to fall into place. Then look at your nutrition, hydrate right. You can drink, but do it in moderation. Like it's principle, right? Like especially at our age, you're not going to be able to get up and run that 5K like you could when you were 20 and drink a 20 pack. You're going to have to maybe have two, and you're still going to fill it tomorrow. But have those discussions openly with folks, and just be willing to like call each other out like we did in the military. Because we again, I like personally, I believe like my new mission, I think every veteran's mission, especially if you're in Team RWB, should be like, hey, we fought, defend this nation against like tyranny, bad guys that were, knocking our buildings down. We fought for that guy to our left and right when we were downrange, whatever motivated you to pick up a gun and do dangerous things for the nation. Like we did that. Like it doesn't stop. You still have that in you. And now you should fight for the idea that you're healthy enough to get off the couch and enjoy the things that you defended. Right. And the nation's in a crisis right now with health and wellness. And I think veterans can kind of lead us out of it, just like we did, during the war on terror.
One of the things that kind of brought this home to me is, I know a lot of Vietnam era veterans and even Desert Storm veterans, and I'm like, some of them told me like, we didn't care about any of that health and wellness stuff. We were hell raisers. But now they're 70, 80 years old, and even 65 years old with some of the younger ones, and they've got some serious miles on them. And I had one old, gunnery sergeant, give me the business about, you need to take care of yourself, young man. Don't be like me. And I think it's often overlooked in our community, the aspect that, hey, we can still, maybe we're not as lean, not as green, but we can still treat ourselves like a high performance machine.
Absolutely.
And I always kind of chuckled because, I don't run for a lot of reasons, different story. But when I thought of Team RWB, I always thought of just my buddies who put the shirt on and they'd go running. I'm like, guys, we don't have to do that anymore. But you looking at doing this conversation with you, I realized like, wow, you've expanded out to all kinds of different things. Like there's stuff for swimming and all kinds of other things.
Absolutely.
What's the reaction been like when someone who maybe was like me and they heard about you all a decade ago and just thought, okay, I don't want to run, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, wait a minute, there's all this cool stuff to do. I want to get involved. Do you see your plan starting to come together and bear fruit?
Well, I think It absolutely is. It takes constant like messaging, right? Because again, like the majority it's of folks that join RWB, it's because they see all the red shirts at a marathon or something like, man, these guys look like they're all together. They're like on a team. How do I get it to be a part of them? And again, it's the veteran reaction of like, I don't want to face right and go for a 2 mile run, like that's not for me. The but I think movement in and of itself and physical activity does help the brain. I mean, I can tell you right now, if I go for a walk or a run, I'm going to have a better day than if I don't. Or if I go to the gym and work out, whatever. But we did realize, hey, we're missing a group of folks. There's cyclists, there's mountain bike people, there's folks that want to do yoga, there's folks that want to just walk. I mean, we got a lot of Vietnam veterans. There's a group that still like gets together in Minnesota. They go to the mall and they walk, and they get coffee afterwards, So it's just keep that movement together and do it with some other folks. It's gonna help you out mentally and ultimately physically, right? Um, but it does allow us to reach a larger population and afford folks access to the community if they're not a runner, right? So it's very important for us to expand that and provide that kind of reach beyond just the running club. Um, yeah, I don't think there's a single thing we don't do. I mean, we even got people that are like, we don't have it in our app yet as the pickleball group, but I mean, there's a group of Eagles that get to in multiple different places that have pickleball clubs. There's folks doing different like
I'm a weightlifter,
activities.
sir.
What there's definitely a
I move
weightlifting.
mass. There
Yeah,
is.
there's definitely, it would be under the functional fitness, that kind of captures all weightlifting. But we definitely have folks that are just like, I just like to lift weights and I just want to look jacked and look big. Like
Well,
I don't
I
have to
can
run
beat.
if I have muscle mass on my body, right? So yeah.
All right.
You could be like one of my guys, like when I was on team leader, I was a runner and then we had a lot of guys that lifted weights and they're like, sir, running breeds cowardice. We're not going for a 10-mile run today. We're going to the gym. So I get it. I get it. You gotta do it all.
Well, it just goes back to your early point, though, about you all being adaptable. And I think that's very interesting because some orgs get tunnel vision, they get in their silo or echo chamber, and any change is bad, any adjustment to the mission focus is bad, and we're not going to do it because it might confuse the message or whatever. But you all have very purposely and intentfully allowed to be yourselves to be flexible and open to change, and then grow the mission. And I think a lot of people miss that.
Yeah, I think we do as long as we keep it within the parameters of like what we do, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, we're able to maybe broaden it by saying we're not just doing physical fitness, we're doing holistic health and wellness. But we know that like, there's certain things that you're not going to get from Team RWB that you honestly could get. We're not going to be guitars for vets. You're not going to see the Eagle guitar group in our app, right? Because there are other groups doing it 10 times better than us. So ideally, we can serve as a hub. I mean, we're hosting 300,000 plus members over the 15 years, right? That have been that signed up to be Eagles at one time or the other. Are they all active every single month? No. But we have, I think 15,000 individual interactions in the app monthly. So we have a pretty high participation rate. Um, and we have people that want to do other things. So we're looking to build out as a hub, like how do you get access to these other things that might interest you? And we're fine with that. Like we don't like go do guitar for vets. We have our member experience director just worked with the veteran organization, learning how to sail, right? And obviously they're like, we tricked you. It was resiliency training, but you guys learned how to sail. But there's so many great organizations out there providing similar like opportunities for veterans, and we just want to be a conduit for that as well. But we're not going to shift. Like I've seen that as well, where other organizations will be like, well, this isn't working for us, so we're going to be health and wellness now too. We'll do what Team RWB does. I think RWB's been very well at kind of this staying focused on what we do
Yeah.
within
Yeah.
our lanes, championing those things that are going on outside of our lanes, because it only makes life better for people we're trying to serve.
You kind of, told us what the future of RWB is, but in a more focused way. You're moving to be the executive director. There change is constant. What do you see as the future for RWB in the short term, sir?
So I think it's actually it's a little bit more of the same, right? It's a continue to evolve and focus on our strengths. Um, we're leaning into the idea that, the world is more data centric and you actually have access to a lot more information based on like wearables and just, what people will share and tools. Don't be afraid of AI. There's tools that can help you to like break down the analytics and tell you, like, give us a better scorecard. So we're taking a hard look at our impact to our membership. Because there are, again, we keep coming back to it. There's a lot of folks who are like, oh, you're just a running club. What are you really doing for veterans? And we're like, well, there's mental health, there's physical health. Like, you just get somebody moving for 6 months, we could prove it. So we're leaning into these ideas that we got to be a little bit more strict in understanding like what we actually are doing for our community and then adjusting our programs to, again, the goal is to make a little more healthy, a little more well every single day. We got to do that. So I think we're leaning into that. You'll see at the end of this year, within the app, we're gonna if you want to permission it, you can have your wearable data show up, in your feed, and that will help us to understand, like, well, Sully's in here. He's been doing all the things that we've provided for him, and look, his sleep got better, his VO2 max got better, his all these things that nobody knows with all these devices are tracking. Hopefully we can help folks and make it accessible to them to understand, um, like what their smartwatch or Aura rings telling them, is going on with their sleep, and then, move them in the right direction to continue to get better with that stuff. So I think we'll lean into the technology a little bit more. We're looking at how do we adapt our in-person environment. Chapter-based organization, it's worked for years. Is that the way to go in the future, or do we we're seeing a lot of success within the application, like we talked about, of these different types of groups that are niche. So maybe the individual in Fayetteville doesn't want to go to the 5K that's every Tuesday, Thursday. They're looking for the Fayetteville mountain biking group of Eagles or pickleball group or weightlifters, right? They're not going to show up at the run, but they would definitely show up at, the Fit for Life or the Planet Fitness and, throw around some weight with another, like-minded veteran and maybe get some stuff off their chest about, what's going on in their life while they're getting, healthier physically. So I think we're going to lean into like how we can invest again, because it's just the gold standard when you can get people out and they can build a community around themselves in person. Um, so there'll be more of that as well. And then we'll continue to try to push the message, right? We are never gonna you're never gonna hear Team RWB say victimize a veteran or say that you guys that we're all broken or we need help. That's not our thing. We absolutely think that like veterans are exceptional people. Their service probably made them more resilient. They probably got tools on that team that they didn't have on the teams that got them up to service, if they weren't lucky like I was. And I think reminding them of that and pulling them back out off the couch, that, it is better days ahead. You will see veterans leading America out of this health and wellness crisis where we won't worry about acute physical diseases that are preventable or even mental ones that are preventable because we're going to stay well left of that, in a group like RWB.
Well, I just think, in addition to that, I mean, we're probably in the same age demographic is, as I do weightlifting and compete in there, I'm reading all this, studies about how, physical activity, weight training, fitness, running, yoga at our age and beyond means for a better quality of life
Oh yeah.
and more enjoyment out of life than just being sedentary. And so, you know, I think there's a lot of value in what you do. And again, for me, for many, many years, I just thought that you were running club and my fellow Marine buddies who just couldn't get enough of the, left, right, left, just loved going there. And I'm like, go to it, guys. Let me know how it is when you get back. I'm all good. But, again, you include civilians, you're adaptable, but you're mission focused. It's just a really interesting time to learn about your organization, sir.
Yeah. No, we absolutely want to provide veterans what they need. I mean, we're working now with entity called for-profit entity called the University of Health and Performance. They don't term themselves this way, but they're like I say they're like the fitness center of the universe, kind of like the Army guys call Fort Bragg the center of the universe. It's in North and West Arkansas, started by an Army vet, and the idea is like if you want to be a certified personal trainer or a nutritionist or someone that understands physical fitness better and make that your life, or you just want to know better, like come here to University of Health and Performance. So we started a scholarship program last year to help, our members get there if that's what they want to do. Maybe they want to be a personal trainer, maybe they want to be a weightlifting coach, and this is a great place for them to get started. If it's not there, then you tell us. Like, there's this other weightlifting program for coaching. I really like to do that. Will you guys give me a scholarship to do that? Because it makes the community better. Like, if I could get you a little bit smarter about lifting weights, maybe you don't need it, but I would. Um, and then you're going to host a weightlifting thing in your local community with other Eagles, Team RWB members. Ideally, you're certified and trained. So we're leaning into stuff like that as well, because we see it as an opportunity, again, to harness the power of a group of people that are service oriented, and they do want to kind of make the people to their left and right a little bit better. We would tell them to focus on yourself a little bit more than maybe you did when you were mission focused in the military. That's okay now, but we're trying to really meet people where they're at and expand the mission set for it.
Just to go back on the personal side a little bit as we wind this down, sir, you have children and a lot of them are serving the military or going into service themselves. It's kind of like a generational thing with your family, but you served our country for almost 30 years. You have children now serving. What's it like watching them serve as they watched you serve as they were growing up?
Yeah, it's interesting. When you become a parent of a service member, obviously you're a little bit more concerned about what's going to happen with them. Having 6 combat deployments and understanding like what the high end of what their service could mean. You don't want that for your children, although they would say that's why they joined, because they, heard the good stories, or they saw like what I got out of my time in the service, and they wanted the same thing for themselves. So extremely proud. So I have 3 children. My oldest son is actually a certified personal trainer and a meal prep chef. So he's civilian, not in the service at all, but in the fitness industry. And then I have twins, a son and daughter, who are both in their 5th year of service. They graduated in 2020 from West Point. I'm not a West Pointer, but they decided to challenge themselves that way. I told them as an ROTC guy, I got to hate them for the rest of my life because they're ring knockers and I'm not.
I was going to ask about that's my next thing. What's it like having not one, sir, but 2 ring knockers?
Yeah, I got 2 ring knockers. It's gross. The other joke is you talked about it earlier.
I got to ask. Now, the thing I've been told by other, people like yourself is you can tell a West Point person, but you can't tell them anything. How does that figure into your children, sir? How?
I think both of my kids would listen to me. My daughter is a little bit more hard-headed than my son, but okay. I see that. I got to be careful. My girl is a West Pointer as well.
Oh,
my current, the guy I'm replacing, he's amazing. Like, I'm surrounded by him. But no, they had an incredible opportunity and time there, and now both serve, both in different capacities though. So my son is an infantry officer. We talked about Ranger School. He went to Ranger School. I'm one of the rare Special Forces guys that never went to Ranger School. And I joke that I didn't have to because I skipped it. I went to graduate school and I skipped the university. But he'll say it's because I was scared because it was harder than the Special Forces training. We'll see. But he's a Ranger qualified infantry officer. Just finished his time. Well, he finished his time in Alaska, and now he's on his way after his captain's career course to Hawaii next. I don't know if he's going to do 30 years like I did. I keep joking with him that, I said I was going to do 4 and get out, and then it was 5, and then it was 6. You're saying it's 8, and then you're going to get out. Like, call me in 30, and we'll see where you're at. But he's very motivated, and it's fun to see his journey within what he's doing. His twin sister has a little bit of a different story, and this is the lead that I bury every time I talk to somebody, or we just would talk about this. So Samantha Jackson is her brother. She went to West Point as well. Thought she would walk onto the soccer team. They weren't taking walk-ons, so she walked onto the women's Army rugby team. And the rest is kind of history. She became the top scorer at West Point in women's rugby. She did 2 years as an combat engineer platoon leader, did her time doing that kind of stuff. And then was called up to the USA women's rugby team, sevens rugby team. And the Army has this program called the World Class Athlete Program, that if you're an Olympic athlete, that can be your full-time job. So Samantha plays sevens international rugby full-time, went to the Olympics last year and got a
I was going to
bronze
say,
medal.
Kelowna, yeah.
Yeah, if you Google Sammy Sullivan, he's the little blonde spitfire that like is very intense on the rugby field. So that's
Nice.
what her service is a little bit different, but she's had an opportunity to talk about the Army quite a bit lately based on her success, and so she's serving in a little bit different capacity. But yeah, it's exciting.
It has to be, as a dad. You have to be proud of all your children and what they've been able to do. I just want to thank you for coming on and one, educating me, because again, full disclosure, I always, again, thought that, Team red shirt, they're out for a run. And up here in New England, oh, it's snowing, we're out for a run. It's raining, we're out for a run. We just love going running. I'm like, you guys go get it. But as I dug into this story and your background, I realized that, wow, that they've very intentfully adapted and grown to, make sure people aren't isolated. I think that's the most powerful thing that I got out of it. Just want to thank you for coming on.
Thank you very much. Yeah, any opportunity to tell my service story, kind of protect the sanctity of the all volunteer force. I think that's kind of one of the missions for all of us. We should talk about our service in a positive way and what an impact it had in our lives. And anytime to talk about Team RWB, I'm going to be, not just because of my job. It has been a huge part of my life, both active duty and now as a retired service member. And I just want as many people to learn about it and get involved as possible.
Well, thank you very much, sir. Hey, again, it's Travis Oscar Mike Radio here. I'm with Colonel U.S. Army retired Michael Sullivan with Team RWB, and I've just learned a lot. I've been saying that, hey, civilians have a place at the table too. You have a place at Team RWB. There's more to do except for running, in addition to running, excuse me. So again, sir, I just want to say thank you. As we say in Oscar Mike Radio, we're mission in flight. We'll see you next time.
The biggest fear Gold Star families have, that their child will be forgotten.
We need to never forget freedom wasn't free.
It's the fact that they give us the life we have now. We should remember them and give thanks to them.
If I can be a part of something today that's going to make the surviving family of any of these veterans, these heroes, feel better tomorrow, then it's worth it.
That one wreath symbolizes one family that was able to smile because of the generous donations.
To sponsor a wreath and honor a veteran, visit wreathsacrossamerica.org.
Thank you for listening and watching Oscar Mike Radio, where our active duty service members and veterans are in action and the mission is in flight. Oscar Mike Radio is an oversized load Co-Sinister One production. If you are a veteran or know a veteran who needs help, please dial 988 and press 1 for the Veterans Crisis Line.